There are many types of stands, the cool ones, the mid ones, and the really great ones. The good certainly outweighs the bad for sure, but one thing they all share is weirdness. It just happens that some manifest this weirdness in different ways, some for better, others for worse. Luckily today I've separated the wheat from the chaff to prattle about the stands that are theoretically unbeatable. Please note that this video will contain manga spoilers, so stay tuned to avoid being caught off guard. That being said, let's get to know the stands. Weather Report. The stand and its user share the same name. However, for those who are close, you can also call its user Domenico Pucci. Weather Report is a stand focused on manipulating the weather and the atmosphere, much like Storm from the X-Men. However, Weather Report can do much more than just create storms. It can also manipulate air to create oxygen suits for its body, or even divert the path of bullets. With this ability, it can also control the oxygen concentration within a closed environment. As a result, its victim may suffer from suffocation or cause severe damage to their ears, lungs, and heart. It also has an incredible range that can extend up to 30 meters. Weather Report can generate highly unique storms, such as creating a rain of poisonous toads. Weather Report is a secret weapon, is an ability called Heavy Weather. The stand generates various rainbows, and if someone touches these rainbows, that person begins to transform into a snail, potentially becoming a hybrid of a snail-human. So never doubt that JoJo's abilities can become even more bizarre. With such versatile powers, Weather Report becomes a very difficult stand to defeat. Green Grass of Home. The Green Baby stand introduced in Stone Ocean, a creature created from Dio's bone, or can we say Jonathan's? Anyway, Green Grass of Home is a stand that automatically protects its user. Basically, it prevents anything from getting close to the Green Baby by reducing the size of anything that tries to approach. The closer something gets to the user, whether an object or a person, the smaller it becomes, shrinking proportionally to its proximity to the Green Baby. For example, their size will also be reduced by half it again, and our body will be 1/4 of its size, and so on. Since the distance is always cut in half, an enemy becomes unable to reach the Green Baby because an infinite space is created between them and their opponent. If the target moves away from the child, they will grow back proportionally to the distance. The problem is that if a person does not stop advancing, they will shrink to an atomic size, and possibly disappear from reality. Not to mention that if someone somehow manages to get close enough to the Green Baby, there is also the manifestation of its stand, which will become a giant compared to the shrunken target. In the end, the stand had a very little presence in the story, as Pucci merged with the baby to gain his new stand, Simoon. It is likely that if that baby had lived a normal life and grown up, its stand would have been completely unbeatable. Imagine for some reason you're walking up to the most terrifying person you ever met. She doesn't like you or hate you, but this guy is way stronger and bigger than you, so you try to be polite and friendly, not to piss off the bully, and out of nowhere, you're insulting the shit out of that person because something touched your mouth, and before you remember, you're already dead. Who touched you? Wonder of you. Who's stronger, Godzilla or Ultraman? That's always been on my mind ever since I fantasized about it as a child. Even when writing JoJo, this type of topic is not something I can avoid. Who's the strongest villain? What is strength? And what is peak fortune? I've decided that the strongest and most terrifying adversary one can face is called Calamity. Calamity attacks irrationally, but is actually bound by certain logic and will encroach every person equally. It's too powerful, and trying to overcome it might in itself be beyond hope. This is the conclusion of JoJolian. There are very few antagonists in manga who can be as boring and terrifying at the same time than Toru. I think I speak for everyone when I say that the best thing to come out of JoJo's Part A is its villain, because Wonder of You breaks every anime verse you can think of. A force of nature so unstoppable that only God is immune to it. The most powerful stand in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, period. And the hardest one to overcome in the entire franchise. You'd be hard pressed to not put this guy at least in the top 10 strongest villains in Shonen. Wonder of You's capacity to give misfortune and bad luck brings truly hellish implications to those who challenge or persecute Toru, or the human form of Wonder of You, Satoru Akif, be it Gojo, Goku, Saitama, you name it. Think of Kyoka Suigetsu, but the victim also gets hit with bad fortune while hypnotized. It doesn't matter who or what you are, because on top of that, it negates durability. You can't think of a way to counter it because the mere thought of it is an act of pursuit. Wonder of You is so scary that it can touch something and that thing will be the cause of a calamity falling upon you. Against this enemy, everything becomes impossible if the opponent's reasoning does not break every aspect of reality, also known as logic. In the heat of battle, every particular way of thinking, especially one that is reasonable and based on good judgment, is going to fail against Wonder of You, no matter what. Summarizing, for some reason, when you fall under this stand's influence, bad luck will persistently follow you. You'll find yourself in dangerous situations that wouldn't usually occur, causing harm as long as you continue to pursue Toru. The stand can be more terrifying than its user. Wonder of You can assume the form of a stand or a human, making it visible even to normal people. The primary ability of Wonder of You allows it to manipulate the law of natural calamity. In other words, gives it complete control over a person's bad luck. This ability can be activated in anyone who has looked at the back of the stand in its human form. All targets will experience horrible situations referred to as calamities. Any attempt to pursue or even intend to attack the stand or the user is enough for that person to receive a calamity. For example, even objects touched by the stand can be infused with calamity, and no matter how harmless those objects may be, they can become a deadly weapon. It's worth mentioning that the stand can even create multiple illusions of itself, which it uses to make its back visible to the target. And even after Toru was killed, Wonder of You did not disappear. It continued to exist, and its calamity powers remained active. Essentially, if you harbor ill will or take action against Toru, you'll be contending with an unstoppable force of calamity. And trust me, you don't want to be on the receiving end of that. Every single person who tries will perish trying to at least get close to the stand, and is all on destiny. We have seen calamities be already on position to occur even before the calamity was triggered. It goes beyond time. It goes beyond everything. It's unpredictable. It's the logic of our world that could only be broken because of a fusion, the spin, and the help of Paisley Park, which is the stand that guides people to the right path. Only that could defeat him. Basically, a sequence of events that led to a miracle. Notorious B.I.G is an automatic stand that is only activated after the death of its user. From then on, the stand acts as a relentless predator, pursuing and absorbing anything that moves near it. Notorious gets larger and larger. It is not known for sure if it has a limit to its growth. It could potentially become the size of a building or even a city, but the largest size we've seen it reach was equivalent to an airplane. The stand always reacts at speed. It will immediately attack. However, the stand is attracted to the thing that is moving the fastest in the environment. Even if it somehow has its body destroyed, a single particle of it is enough for it to regenerate completely, as long as it reaches a source of energy to feed on. The stand was only overcome because Trish managed to separate the group from the plane, and since they were flying over the sea, Notorious fell into the ocean, doomed to react to the speed of the waves forever. If they had been flying over a city, Notorious' problem would have been even greater, as it would have devoured all the humans trying to flee from it, and become gigantic. Therefore, it was not defeated, only avoided. Silver Chariot Requiem. This stand is the evolved form of Polnareff's Silver Chariot. After being struck by the arrow, it became an autonomous stand that roamed freely in the world, as it no longer depended on its user. The stand could be seen even by non-stand users, and only moved in a straight line, with the sole purpose of protecting the arrow from anyone trying to take it. One of its abilities was to force changes in the body and spirit of all living beings around it. All those affected initially fell into a deep sleep, had their souls swapped with the nearest creature, but it didn't stop there, because after that, their bodies would undergo severe mutations and transform into monsters, since Chariot Requiem had control over the soul, and if a stand user tried to attack it with their power, it simply made the user attacked by their own stand, and even if someone managed to hit it, it wouldn't be a big deal, as it could regenerate and even reattach amputated limbs in an instant, making the stand almost indestructible. The only way to defeat Chariot Requiem is by observing having its shadow. Each person sees their shadow in a different position because it represents the reflection of the darkness within each person. Diavolo punched the light of his own soul, which destabilized Chariot and allowed him to steal the arrow, and by doing so the stand dissolved. I don't think that most people would have been able to figure that out in the first place, so it is invincible. Like Chariot Requiem, Giordano's stand also underwent a significant evolution after being struck by the golden arrow. All of God Experience's standard abilities remained after its evolution, but they were all greatly improved. The stand had all of its attributes enhanced, to the point where even a simple pebble with shot had force enough to penetrate Diavolo's hand and destroy a pillar behind him, but the debris from the pillar quickly turned into several scorpions, showing that the stand now had the ability to create life even at a distance. However, its most powerful ability is Return to Zero, which causes any action taken against Giordano to be nullified and return to the zero state, preventing that action from becoming reality. This technique activates automatically, in theory, no matter what type of attack is launched. Giordano will avoid it without having to move a muscle. In simpler terms, it's like using the Ctrl-Z on your keyboard to undo something, but here it's automatic and applied directly to reality. If someone is unfortunate enough to be killed by God Experience Requiem, that person is sent into an infinite loop of deaths, experiencing various creative forms of demise. Not even Giordano can interrupt this loop. Prison, worse than death itself. Do you still want to challenge Passione's new boss after learning what he's capable of? This is considered the perfect form a stand can achieve. After following Dio's diary notes, Pucci managed to evolve his stand into a true deed. Mating Heaven's power essentially involves temporal acceleration, where it can dramatically speed up the flow of time, controlling the gravitational forces of the Earth, the Moon, and possibly the entire universe. No living being can keep up with this acceleration. Therefore, to others, Pucci seems to be moving at incredibly high speed, but in reality, he is just synchronized with the accelerated time. And from his perspective, others seem to be moving in slow motion. Although so powerful, Pucci's only intention with Mating Heaven was to accelerate the universe to the point of being forced to reset, and thus Pucci was able to recreate the universe, generating an entirely new one from scratch. Pucci was able to defeat everyone who dared to confront his Mating Heaven, and to this day, this stand is seen as one of the strongest ones in the series. This is Funny Valentine's stand, the main antagonist of Steel Ball Run. D4C's abilities allows different worlds to coexist simultaneously, which enables him to prevent very creative surprise attacks on his opponents. However, there is a kind of rule that says that two identical objects cannot coexist in the same dimension, so if an object collides with itself from another dimension, the two would try to occupy the same space and end up disintegrated. Therefore, Valentine can simply take his opponent's self from another dimension and make the two versions of them collide and be destroyed. The only one immune to this rule is Valentine himself, who can merge with the bodies of his other selves. If he wishes, he can even bring dozens of copies of himself from another dimension to assist him in battle. Another interesting ability of the stand is that if Valentine has any fatal injuries, he can simply visit another parallel dimension and send his D4C to the body of his counterpart, basically giving him a brand new body while retaining his memories. Finally, as a blessing from the Holy Corpse, D4C gained an ability called Love Train. While Love Train is active, Valentine becomes effectively invincible, hiding within a dimension, which is like a gap in space, bounded by a protective wall of light, originating from Lucy's steel. This dimensional barrier redirects all misfortune away from the user, leaving only good luck. Any shot fired against Valentine in his barrier is sent off to other individuals as bad luck, but Love Train can only be used within a certain distance of Lucy, otherwise the power moves away from D4C. The only ability that can break through Love Train is the Golden Spin, which was used against it by Tusk Act 4. King Crimson is one of the more impressive stands featured in the series, both physically strong and possessing the ability to erase time, as well as predict the future. King Crimson is described as invincible against all other stands whose powers do not affect time, alluding to the possibility that the likes of Time Stop and Bites the Dust could counter it, which would put the stands and their powers on this bracket as well. You know, the category of abilities that cannot be matched by any other stand type in the series. Just like Echoes is divided into 3 acts, Tusk is divided into 4. And now to give some context of the powers of Tusk, I need to dive into each act, so sit tight, because it's story time. Despite having a corporeal form, Tusk's powers functions as a supernatural ability that Johnny must use personally to fight like a gunman. Tusk Act 1 is overall quite weak and isn't sufficient to challenge most stand users. Tusk Act 1 grants Johnny the ability to imbue his nails with a spin. Johnny is able to make his fingernails, and later toenails, spin themselves at a high velocity and shoot them like bullets up to 10 meters. The nails have immense cutting power, capable of slicing through rock, cutting limbs clean off, or carving a tree into a humanoid shape in a matter of seconds. However, they do not possess the power to cut through metal. Once Johnny shoots a fingernail, they take a short time to grow back. Tusk Act 2 is the first evolved form of Tusk, except when Johnny makes progress in the technique of the spin and uses the golden rectangle. Once Johnny learns to imbue his fingernails with the spin in accordance with the golden rectangle, it greatly enhances the basic properties of his shot. When Johnny activates Tusk, the fingernails now rotate around his finger. Thus, when he shoots the fingernails, they possess a drilling property, which dramatically increases the power of the shots. For instance, one shot is able to blast away a large zone on impact. On the downside, the nails regrow considerably slower, and as such, Johnny must save his nails, or he will find himself out of ammunition. In addition to the damage boost, the nail shots gain a new property. After they land, they disappear and leave a bullet hole. This hole, created through the rotation, can automatically chase after any target designated by Johnny, leaving a dark trail behind them. The holes act as though the target was hit by a bullet in the location they touch, and the holes shrink and disappear after a while. Tusk Act 3. By shooting himself with a spin imbued fingernail with aerial rotation, Johnny is able to suck his body into the hole it creates. The hole created by the nail shot, specifically the small rotating point at the end of the hole, becomes a special space, which due to the infinite proportion of Johnny's spin is also infinite and becomes a wormhole through space. A tailpiece theorizes the space as a boundary between dimensions. Johnny alone can enter that location, and anything other than him will be cut. This ability is limited by how long the holes can persist in the world. By moving the hole while his body is inside, Johnny is able to quickly reposition himself or key parts of him, such as his shooting hands, and attack from unexpected angles. Because the hole functions as a wormhole, anything sending to it will exit through the other end, although it will be severed, and this includes enemy attack. Tusk Act 4 embodies the infinite energy and rotation of the golden spin, and it is able to deploy it in various ways. Following the principle of the golden spin, the energy wielded and embodied by Tusk Act 4 is infinite, allowing a wide array of otherwise impossible feats. One of the first abilities displayed by Tusk Act 4 is to be able to break through the dimensional barrier of Love Train and enter the space in which Valentine hides. Moreover, Tusk Act 4 defies the laws of gravity, and therefore can move slightly, probably still influence the ego during the stopped time. The damage caused by the rotation is stated to be probably infinite as well. Like with Act 2 and Act 3, the energy of the spin can persist inside objects, even if Johnny misses a nail shot, and it can be redirected toward a target. If Act 4 touches someone, it imbues the target with an infinite spinning motion. Not only does part of the body separate to spin, everything down to individual cells spin on themselves, greatly distorting the shape of the victim. Eventually, the targets are disintegrated by the rotation, and according to Diego, sent to another dimension. Not even a soul will be left behind. The spin goes on forever and never leaves the person or their stand, forcing them to return to the place where they were hit, or its equivalent in each parallel dimension. Thus, Funny Valentine was not able to escape it despite switching dimension and body, always returning to the underground location in which he was hit. If someone uses a tool, like a carriage, the spin will imbue itself into the tool and destroy it, forcing the target back into their location. The rotation won't end unless Johnny shoots the target with a similar rotation that is spinning in the opposite direction, resulting in the two of them cancelling each other out. He can, however, shortcut the process as a last-ditch effort, using a steel ball to temporarily galvanize his horse's movement, following the principle of the golden spin, wielded and embodied by Tusk Act 4. Tusk Act 4 can also apply the spin's energy in a more similar fashion to its previous forms, and directly open a large space where there was none. The spin is also transferable between objects, as the Diego Brando from another universe cut his leg off and threw it to Johnny, transferring the infinite rotation to him. That being said, it is not one of the strongest stands in the series, far from that actually, because stands should be ranked overall based on flexibility. For example, while a stand like Tusk Act 4 is good, its main ability is limited because it has to be used on a horse, which makes it somewhat worse than stands like Star Platinum or the World that can manipulate time and move at light speed. However, in retrospect, the stand is good because of the one-shot potential and the boundaries that it can cross. It's kind of the same way for Go Beyond. Like, even though Go Beyond was able to beat Wonder of You in an actual ranking, I would still put Go Beyond below it because Wonder of You has just way more favorable matchups. Same with Love Train in Tusk Act 4. It may be the strongest offensive power in the series, but the trade-off is that Johnny can only use its infinite spin when on a horse. Meanwhile, Love Train lets you stalemate almost any opponent. Soft and Wet, originally belonging to Josefumi Kujo. Soft and Wet possesses attributes of that of a close-range stand, having extremely enhanced strength that allows it to break walls with back kick and dominate enemies with his Ora-Ora attacks. In a brief encounter with Yotsuyu Yagiyama's stand, he further proved his prowess in hand-to-hand combat over other stands. Soft and Wet has always been able to produce soap bubbles. The difference is that after undergoing equivalent exchange with Killer Queen, the bubbles created by Soft and Wet acquired aspects of his own bubble generating stand ability. Thus, Soft and Wet's bubbles have a distinct Josefumi have and Kira have. Josefumi often takes direct advantage of his bubbles and their property. The bubbles have lifting power. This allows Josuke to enclose others in a giant bubble and lift them into the air and help them reach vantage point. Josuke also wraps himself and his friends in giant bubbles to take advantage of their situational protection. The bubbles are actually comprised of tiny cords that vibrate at super high speeds, making them look like spheres. Soft and Wet's signature ability of stealing some things from objects works in conjunction with his bubbles. Josuke can steal aspects or attributes from both inanimate or animate things, and the bubbles only seem to work for stealing small things from larger objects. Examples include temperature. While battling with Jobin, Josuke takes some temperature from his brush and Jobin's Rosenberg to check the amount of heat by placing that temperature in a nearby thermometer. Human sight. After bursting near Joshu's eyes, the bubble completely blinds Joshu for a few seconds, almost as if his eyes had just popped. Moisture of the human body. Josuke uses one of his bubbles to covertly poke small holes into a woman's body to quickly deprive her of water and induce thirst. Sound. Like when he stole the sound from a light switch, preventing any noise that would have been caused upon turning it off. Josuke eliminates friction on the floor, creating a surface as smooth as ice. Smell. Josuke can trap scents in the bubble, and when the bubble bursts, he can track whatever he wants going off of the smell. As mentioned earlier, these merge bubbles retain some aspects of Killer Queen's explosive power, and they burst with enough force to damage someone at close range, as seen when Josuke's one to shatter Tamaki Damo's sunglasses. In addition to this, Soft and Wet can injure someone by popping bubbles which have been embedded under their skin, an ability that Apex Brothers remarked bears a striking resemblance to Kira's fighting style. And finally, Soft and Wet Go Beyond. Go Beyond's powers is comprised of something called the explosive spin, which are bubbles that are so small and spin so fast that it's almost like they don't even exist. This fusion between abilities is what allows Soft and Wet to bypass calamity and transcend logic. In terms of damage, other than its absolute power to cross anything, it is able to blow off any part of the human body as it first crosses through the person. That's it for today, guys. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this. With that being said, thanks for watching this video. See you in the next one.